The message came at 3:47 in the morning, Earth Standard Time. It traveled across the cold emptiness of space for 6 hours before it reached the nearest relay station. From there, it spread like fire through dry grass. Every human ship, every station, every colony world received it within minutes. Dr. Park Yuna's voice was shaking when she recorded it. She was hiding under her desk in the research lab, holding her communication device with both hands. The sounds of explosions and screaming filled the background. Her words were simple and desperate. "This is Dr. Park Yuna of Earth Coalition Research Station 7. We are under attack. There are 32 researchers here, 19 children. We have no weapons. We have no soldiers. Please, anyone who can hear this, help us." The message ended with static. Captain Kang Do-yun was sleeping in his small cabin aboard the patrol ship Resolve when his second officer woke him. She played the recording without saying a word. Do-yun listened to it once, then twice, then 5 more times. Each time, the fear in Dr. Park's voice cut deeper into his heart. "How far are we?" he asked. 3 days at maximum speed, sir." 3 days. Do-hyun closed his eyes and thought about what could happen in 3 days. He thought about the children on that station. He thought about his own daughter back on Earth, safe in her bed, not knowing that somewhere in the galaxy, other children were crying for help. "Set course immediately," he ordered. "Push the engines past their limits if you have to." The Resolve was a small ship with a crew of 47. It was meant for patrol duty, not combat. But Do-yun did not care. He would fly into hell itself if it meant saving those people. As his ship turned toward Sanctuary Station, Do-yun contacted Fleet Command. Admiral Cho Yunji answered his call personally. She was a woman of 60 years with gray hair and eyes like steel. She had commanded human fleets for 3 decades, and she had never lost a battle. But more importantly, she had never abandoned anyone under her protection. "I have already seen the message," Admiral Cho said. "Every available ship is moving toward Sanctuary Station. We have identified the attackers." "Who are they?" "The Makari Dominion." Do-hyun felt his blood turn cold. Everyone in the galaxy knew the Makari. They were slavers who had terrorized the outer regions of space for over 500 years. They attacked weak species and took their people as property. They were cruel and powerful, and the elder races of the galaxy had learned long ago to either pay them tribute or hide from them. Humanity had done neither. Humanity had simply not been important enough for the Makari to notice, until now. "Why would they attack a research station?" Do-hyun asked. "Because they think we are weak," Admiral Cho replied. "They see that we trade instead of conquer. They see that we talk instead of fight. They believe we are soft, easy prey." Her voice became hard as iron. "They are about to learn how wrong they are." Admiral Cho ended the call, and Do-yun returned to the bridge of his ship. His crew was already working at full speed. Every person on the Resolve had heard the recording. Every person had seen the fear in their captain's eyes turn into something else. Something dangerous. On Earth, the news spread within hours. People woke up to find the recording playing on every screen, every device, every public display. They heard Dr. Park Yuna begging for help. They heard the children crying in the background. The reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Young men and women lined up at military recruitment centers before sunrise. Retired soldiers called their old commanders and asked to return to service. Factory workers volunteered to work double shifts building weapons and ships. Scientists dropped their research to focus on military technology. Even criminals in prisons offered to fight. Humanity had always been divided by nations, by languages, by beliefs. But in that moment, hearing the cry of their people in danger, they became one. There were no more borders. There were no more arguments. There was only the burning need to answer that call for help. In the great council halls of the Galactic Union, the elder races watched with confusion. They did not understand what was happening. They had seen many species attacked by the Makari before. Those species had always done the smart thing. They had paid tribute. They had accepted their losses. They had moved on. But the humans were not doing the smart thing. The humans were gathering their ships. The humans were arming their people. The humans were preparing for war. "This is foolish," said the ambassador from the Velith Collective. "The Makari are too powerful. The humans will be destroyed." "Perhaps," said another ambassador quietly. "But look at their faces. Look at their eyes. I do not think they care about being destroyed. I think they only care about one thing." "What is that?" "Saving their children." Back on the Resolve, Captain Kang Do-yun stood at the front of his bridge and looked out at the stars. Somewhere ahead, 19 children were waiting for rescue. They did not know that help was coming. They did not know that an entire species was rising up to save them. But Do-hyun knew, and he made a silent promise to those children he had never met. "Hold on," he thought. "We are coming, and when we arrive, the Makari will learn what happens when you threaten humanity's young." The stars blurred as the Resolve jumped to faster-than-light speed. Behind it, 100 more ships were doing the same, and behind them, 1,000 more were preparing to follow. The cry for aid had been heard, and humanity was answering. Lieutenant Bae Ji-woo had served on the destroyer Unyielding for 4 years. She had seen many things during her service. She had watched pirates flee at the sight of human warships. She had helped rescue colonists from dying worlds. She had stood on the bridge during tense negotiations with alien species. But she had never seen anything like this. Ships were arriving every hour. They came from every corner of human space. Military destroyers and cruisers jumped in first, their weapons already charged and ready. Then came the smaller patrol ships and frigates. Then came something unexpected. Civilian ships began to appear. Mining vessels arrived with their drilling equipment removed and weapons welded in their place. Cargo freighters came loaded with supplies and volunteers. Passenger transports showed up carrying men and women who had never held a gun before but refused to stay behind. "Commander," Ji-woo said to her captain Im Tae-won, "we have 347 ships in the fleet now. More are coming." Tae-won was a tall man with a scar across his left cheek from a battle 15 years ago. He stared at the tactical display showing all the ships gathering together, and his eyes grew wet. He quickly wiped them and straightened his back. "The Makari made a mistake," he said quietly. "They attacked our children." Among the civilian volunteers was a woman named Song Hana. She was a doctor who studied alien biology. She arrived on a medical ship called the Mercy, ready to heal the wounded and comfort the dying. But Hana had another reason for coming. 15 years ago, her younger brother had been captured by slavers from another species. She had never seen him again. She had spent every day since then wondering if he was alive or dead, suffering or at peace. She could not save her brother, but she could help save the people on Sanctuary Station. On the medical ship, she met another doctor named Nam Seok-jin. He was a quiet man with gentle hands and sad eyes. He carried a small recording device everywhere he went. "What is that for?" Hana asked him during the long journey to Sanctuary. "I am recording everything," Seok-jin replied. "Every conversation, every decision, every battle. Someone needs to remember what happens here. Someone needs to make sure the galaxy knows what the Makari did to us and what we did in return." Hana looked at him for a long moment. "Do you think we will win?" Seok-jin was silent for a while. Then he said, "I think that is not the right question. The right question is, will we stop fighting until we win? And I believe the answer is no. We will not stop. We cannot stop. Not when children are in danger." Back on the Unyielding, Commander Im Tae-won called a meeting of all his officers. They gathered in the briefing room, their faces serious and determined. "You all know why we are here," Tae-won began. "A research station was attacked. 32 researchers and 19 children are being held by the Makari. Our mission is simple. We will rescue them. We will destroy any enemy who tries to stop us. And we will make the Makari regret the day they looked at humanity and saw weakness. Lieutenant Bei Jiwoo raised her hand. Sir, what about the Galactic Council? Will the elder races help us? Taewon laughed, but there was no humor in it. The elder races have been paying tribute to the Makari for 500 years. They have been looking away while their people were taken as slaves. They have been telling themselves that this is just how the galaxy works. He shook his head. No, Lieutenant. The elder races will not help us. They will watch from the safety of their homeworlds and wait to see what happens. Then we fight alone, Jiwoo said. We fight alone, Taewon agreed, but we are humanity. We have always been alone, and we have always survived. On Earth, the response to the attack continued to grow. Every news channel showed the same images: ships launching from orbital stations, soldiers boarding transports, families saying goodbye to loved ones who might never return. In one small apartment in Seoul, an old woman named Grandmother Shin watched the news with tears streaming down her face. Her grandson was on one of those ships. He was only 22 years old, barely more than a child himself. But he had called her before he left and said something she would never forget. Grandmother, there are children on that station who are scared and alone. How can I stay here doing nothing when they need help? She had no answer for him. She only held his face in her hands and kissed his forehead and told him to come home safe. Now she sat in her empty apartment and prayed to every god she knew. The fleet continued to grow. 400 ships. 500. 600. Admiral Cho Yoonji watched the numbers climb and felt something she had not felt in many years. Pride. Pure, burning pride in her species. The Makari had spent centuries teaching the galaxy to fear them. They had built their empire on the backs of slaves and the bones of the weak. They believed that cruelty was strength and mercy was weakness. They were about to learn the truth. Humanity was not weak because they chose peace. Humanity was not soft because they preferred talking to fighting. Humanity was simply waiting for a reason to show the galaxy what they were truly capable of. The Makari had given them that reason. Admiral Cho opened a channel to all ships in the fleet. Her voice was calm and steady as she spoke. This is Admiral Cho Yoonji. We are about to enter Makari space. Some of us will not return, but I promise you this. We will save our people. We will free every prisoner. And we will make sure that no one in this galaxy ever thinks of attacking humanity again. All ships, prepare for battle. The fleet jumped as one. 700 human ships disappeared into faster-than-light travel, racing toward Sanctuary Station. The gathering storm had become a hurricane. The human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel like a hammer falling from the sky. 700 ships appeared in the space around Sanctuary Station, their weapons already glowing with power. Captain Kang Do-yeon on the Resolve was the first to see the enemy. His heart sank. 43 Makari warships surrounded the small research station. They were massive vessels, each one twice the size of the largest human ship. Their hulls were covered in weapons and armor. They looked like metal monsters floating in the darkness of space. But Do-hyun did not feel fear. He felt anger, cold, focused anger that burned in his chest like a fire that would never go out. "Open a channel to the enemy fleet," he ordered. His communication officer obeyed. A moment later, the face of a Makari commander appeared on the screen. The creature was tall and thin, with gray skin and black eyes that showed no emotion. When it spoke, its voice was like stones grinding together. "Humans, you have come to negotiate. Good. We will accept payment for the prisoners, 2,000 units of refined metal and 100 of your young ones as additional slaves. This is our price." Admiral Cho Yunji's voice came through the fleet communication system. It was calm and clear, but underneath the calm was something that made every human straighten their back and tighten their grip on their weapons. "Release our people. You have one chance." The Makari commander made a sound that might have been laughter. "One chance? You are surrounded. You are outgunned. Your ships are small and weak. What will you do if we refuse?" Admiral Cho did not answer with words. She answered with fire. The first wave of human ships dove into the Makari formation. Captain Do-hyun led them, his small patrol ship racing toward an enemy cruiser 10 times its size. Behind him came 50 more vessels, their weapons firing without pause. The Makari were shocked. They had expected the humans to talk, to plead, to offer tribute like every other species. They had not expected this madness. They had not expected creatures who would fly straight into death without hesitation. The first Makari ship exploded in a ball of orange fire. Then another. Then another. On the bridge of the unyielding, Lieutenant Bei Ji-woo worked the tactical controls with hands that did not shake. She guided missiles toward enemy ships. She coordinated attacks with other vessels. She watched human ships die and forced herself to keep working. "We have lost the destroyer Braveheart," her sensor officer reported, "and the frigate Morning Star, and the patrol ship Swift Wind." "Keep fighting," Commander Im Tae-won ordered. "Keep fighting until there is nothing left to fight with." In the chaos of battle, a small transport ship broke away from the human fleet and raced toward the Makari flagship. On board was Sergeant Oh Minji and her boarding team of 50 soldiers. Minji was a small woman with short black hair and eyes that had seen too much death. She had joined the military at 18 after watching her village burned by raiders. She had spent 15 years learning how to kill and how to survive. Now she would use everything she had learned. "Listen to me," she told her team as their ship approached the enemy flagship. "Inside that ship are prisoners, our people, our children. We are going to get them out. I do not care how many Makari stand in our way. I do not care if we have to walk through fire. We will save them. Do you understand?" "Yes, Sergeant," 50 voices shouted as one. Their transport crashed into the side of the Makari flagship. The hull tore open. Air rushed out into space. Minji and her team pushed forward, their boots locking onto the deck as they moved through the breach. The first Makari guard appeared around a corner. Minji shot it without slowing down. The second guard met the same fate. The third tried to run and was cut down from behind. The corridors of the Makari ship were dark and filled with strange smells. The walls were covered in markings that Minji did not understand and did not care about. She only cared about moving forward, finding the prisoners, getting them out alive. They fought through 7 levels of the ship. They lost 12 soldiers along the way, but they did not stop. They could not stop. Finally, they reached the holding cells. Minji kicked open the door and stepped inside. What she saw made her freeze. 31 people were locked in metal cages. Their clothes were torn. Their faces were bruised. Some of them were crying. Some of them were too tired to cry anymore. And in the corner, huddled together like frightened animals, were the children. 19 of them. The youngest was only 4 years old. Who are you?" one of the researchers whispered. It was Dr. Park Yuna, the woman who had sent the distress signal. Her voice was broken and weak. Minji removed her helmet so they could see her face. She tried to smile, but her lips were shaking too much. "We heard your message," she said. "We came as fast as we could." Dr. Park started to cry. Not from fear this time, from relief. "Get them to the shuttles," Minji ordered her team. "I will hold this corridor." Her soldiers began breaking open the cages and helping the prisoners to their feet. The children were carried by strong arms, their small hands clutching the soldiers' armor. Makari reinforcements arrived. Minji stood at the end of the corridor and fought them alone. She fought for 11 minutes. 11 minutes of constant firing, constant movement, constant pain as enemy weapons found gaps in her armor. But she did not fall. She did not retreat. She held that corridor until every single prisoner was safely on the evacuation shuttles. When her backup finally arrived, they found her standing among dozens of fallen enemies. Blood was running down her face from a wound on her forehead. Her armor was cracked and burned, but she was still standing. "Sergeant," her lieutenant said, his voice shaking, "you should be dead." Minji ejected her empty weapon magazine and loaded a fresh one. "They attacked our children," she said simply. "I do not get to die until this is finished." Outside, the battle continued to rage, but the tide was turning. The Makari were retreating. The humans were winning. And on a small shuttle racing away from the enemy flagship, 19 children looked out the window at the human fleet fighting to save them. They did not understand everything that was happening, but they understood one thing. They were going home. The battle for Sanctuary Station lasted 9 hours. When the last Makari ship was destroyed, the human fleet had lost 143 vessels. More than 4,000 soldiers and volunteers were dead, but the prisoners were safe, every single one of them. Admiral Cho Eunji stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Eternal Flame, and looked at the wreckage floating in space around her. Broken ships, scattered debris, bodies of both humans and Makari drifting in the cold darkness. It was a victory, but it did not feel like one. "Admiral," her aide said quietly, "the fleet commanders are waiting in the conference room." Cho nodded and walked slowly through the corridors of her ship. She passed soldiers who saluted her with tired arms. She passed medical teams rushing to help the wounded. She passed a young officer sitting alone in a corner, crying for friends who would never come home. The conference room was full when she arrived. Captains and commanders filled every seat. Their faces showed exhaustion, grief, and something else, something dangerous. "We have won the battle," Admiral Cho began. "Our people are safe. The Makari force that attacked them has been destroyed." She paused and looked around the room. "But I do not believe this war is over, and I want to hear your thoughts." Commander Im Taiwan spoke first. His voice was rough from hours of shouting orders during the battle. "The Makari have been attacking innocent people for 500 years. They have enslaved millions across dozens of star systems. The galaxy has done nothing because everyone is afraid of them." He slammed his fist on the table. "We cannot just go home and pretend this never happened. They will come back. They will attack again. Maybe not us, but someone else. Someone weaker." Captain Bei Jiwoo, promoted during the battle after her ship's commander was killed, raised her hand. "Commander Taewon is right. The Makari see this defeat as an insult. They will want revenge. If we do not act now, we will be fighting them again in a year, or 5 years, or 10. "Then what do you suggest?" asked a civilian representative who had come with the volunteer fleet. "We are not conquerors. We do not destroy entire civilizations." Dr. Song Hana stood up. She had spent the last 6 hours treating wounded soldiers and prisoners on the medical ship Mercy. Her white coat was stained with blood. Her eyes were red from crying, but her voice was strong. "I have studied the Makari for 15 years, she said. "I know their history, I know their culture, and I know one thing for certain. They will never stop. Slavery is not just their economy, it is their religion. They believe they have the right to own other beings. They believe the weak exist to serve the strong." She took a deep breath. "As long as the Makari Dominion exists, no one in this part of the galaxy is safe." The room was silent for a long moment. Admiral Cho spoke again. "We have a choice. We can take our people home and hope the Makari leave us alone, or we can finish what they started. We can pursue them to their homeworld. We can free every slave they have taken. We can end their empire forever." "That would mean years of war," someone said. "Yes." "Thousands more dead." "Yes." "We might lose." "Yes." Commander Im Tae-won stood up slowly. I lost 17 crew members today. Good people. People with families waiting for them at home. When I write letters to those families, what should I tell them? That their loved ones died so we could have a few years of peace before the Makari attack again? Or that their loved ones died to make the galaxy a safer place forever? No one argued with him. The vote was taken. Every person in that room raised their hand. The decision was unanimous. Humanity would not stop at Sanctuary Station. The war would continue until the Makari Dominion was destroyed. News of the decision reached the Galactic Council within days. The elder races watched in shock as the humans began preparing for a full-scale invasion of Makari space. Ambassador Yoon Ji-soo traveled to the council headquarters to deliver humanity's message. She was a tall woman with silver hair and a calm face that hid a fierce heart. She had spent 30 years representing humanity to the galaxy, always polite, always diplomatic, always willing to compromise. Not today. She stood before the representatives of 100 alien species and spoke words that would change history. For centuries you have tolerated the Makari because fighting them was inconvenient. You paid tribute. You looked away when they took your people. You told yourselves that this was simply how the galaxy worked. Her voice grew harder. Humanity will not look away. We will not pay tribute. We will not accept a galaxy where children can be stolen from their homes and sold like animals. We are going to destroy the Makari Dominion. We are going to free every slave in their territory, and we are going to make sure this never happens again. The Velith ambassador spoke up. This is madness. The Makari are too powerful. You will destroy yourselves. Ji-soo smiled coldly. Perhaps, but we would rather die fighting for what is right than live knowing we did nothing while innocents suffered. And what do you want from us? Another ambassador asked. Stay out of our way, Ji-soo replied. That is all we ask. Do not help the Makari. Do not give them shelter or supplies. If you do that, we will handle the rest. She turned and walked out of the council chamber without waiting for a response. Back with the human fleet, preparations for the invasion were moving quickly. More ships were arriving from human space every day. Factories on a dozen worlds were working around the clock to build weapons and armor. Training camps were producing new soldiers as fast as possible. Captain Kang Do-hyun, now promoted to admiral for his bravery at Sanctuary Station, met with his officers to plan the first attack. Our target is the Makari forward base at Kelon Station, he said, pointing to a map of enemy space. Intelligence says they have 30,000 slaves there, mostly workers from species conquered decades ago. We are going to free them. Sergeant O'Minji, now Major O'Minji, after her legendary stand on the Makari flagship, nodded. My ground teams are ready. Just get us close enough to land. Do-hyun looked at the faces around him. These were the people who would fight beside him in the coming years. Some would survive, many would not. But all of them had chosen to be here. The galaxy thinks we are soft, he said quietly. They think because we prefer peace. We cannot make war. They are about to learn the truth. Humanity is not weak. Humanity was simply waiting for something worth fighting for. He stood tall and straightened his uniform. Now we have found it. Now the Makari will learn what happens when you threaten our people. Now the galaxy will see what humanity can do when we stop holding back. The fleet began to move. The reckoning had begun. The war against the Makari Dominion lasted 3 years, 2 months, and 17 days. During that time, humanity fought battles across 40 star systems. They liberated 237 slave worlds. They freed more than 50 million beings from captivity, and they lost nearly 100,000 of their own people doing it. But they never stopped. They never retreated. They never considered surrender. Admiral Kang Do-hyun led the final assault on Malar Prime, the Makari homeworld. His flagship, the Remembrance, had been built specifically for this moment. It was the largest ship humanity had ever created, armed with weapons that could crack a planet in half. But Do-hyun had no intention of destroying Malar Prime. He wanted the Makari to see their defeat. He wanted them to understand that their empire of cruelty was over. The battle above Malar Prime lasted 18 hours. The Makari threw everything they had at the human fleet: warships, defense stations, automated weapons platforms, even civilian vessels loaded with explosives and piloted by fanatics. It was not enough. Major Ominji led the ground invasion. 10,000 human soldiers dropped from the sky in assault pods, landing in the streets of the Makari capital city. They fought building by building, room by room, pushing toward the government center where the Makari leaders were hiding. Minji was 53 years old now. Her hair was gray. Her body was covered in scars from 3 years of constant combat, but her eyes were still sharp, and her hands were still steady. When she finally kicked down the door to the Makari ruling chamber, she found a dozen alien leaders cowering behind their guards. Their black eyes were wide with fear. Their gray skin was pale with terror. For 500 years, these creatures had ruled their empire through fear and cruelty. They had believed they were the masters of the galaxy. They had never imagined that anyone would dare to challenge them. Now they were face to face with their judgment. "The war is over," Minji said simply. "Surrender, and you will face trial. Resist, and you will die here." The guards dropped their weapons. The leaders fell to their knees. Humanity had won. Dr. Park Yuna watched the surrender ceremony from the Bridge of the Remembrance. 3 years ago, she had been hiding under a desk, begging for help that she thought would never come. Now she stood beside Admiral Kang Do-yun as the last Makari warlord signed the document that dissolved their empire forever. "How do you feel?" Do-yun asked her quietly. Yuna thought about the question for a long time. She thought about the fear she had felt on Sanctuary Station. She thought about the faces of the children who had been rescued. She thought about the soldiers who had died to make this moment possible. "I feel grateful," she finally said. "Grateful that when I cried for help, someone answered." Dr. Song Hana and Dr. Nam Seokjin had spent 3 years documenting the war. They had recorded thousands of hours of interviews. They had collected millions of photographs and videos. They had written down every name of every person who had fought and died. Now their work would become the official history of the human Makari War. Future generations would learn what their ancestors had done. They would know the price that had been paid for freedom. "Do you think it was worth it?" Hana asked Seokjin as they watched the celebrations on Malar Prime. Seokjin pointed to a group of alien children playing in the ruins of a slave market. They were laughing. Some of them had never laughed before in their entire lives. "Look at them," he said. "Those children will grow up free. They will have families and dreams and futures. Millions of beings across the galaxy will never again fear being taken from their homes and sold like property." He paused. Yes, it was worth it. Ambassador Yoon Ji-soo delivered humanity's final message to the Galactic Council. The same representatives who had told her that fighting the Makari was madness now sat in stunned silence as she spoke. 3 years ago, we told you that humanity would not accept a galaxy where innocents could be enslaved. You did not believe us. You thought we would fail. You thought we would give up. She smiled slightly. We did not fail. We did not give up. And now the Makari Dominion is gone. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of each representative. Let this be a lesson to anyone who would prey upon the weak. Humanity does not seek war. We do not enjoy violence. We would rather live in peace with all beings. Her voice hardened. But when the helpless cry for aid, we will answer. When children are stolen and innocents are enslaved, we will come. And those who harm the defenseless will discover that humanity's wrath is not something to be tested. She straightened her back and spoke her final words. We are humans. We protect our own. And now, we protect everyone who cannot protect themselves. This is our promise to the galaxy. Break it at your peril. Years later, on the anniversary of the liberation, beings from across the galaxy would gather to remember. They would tell stories of the humans who came when no one else would. They would speak of the small species from Earth that had destroyed the most feared empire in the galaxy. And they would always remember how it began. A single message from a frightened woman hiding under a desk. A cry for help that traveled across the stars. A cry for aid that brought humanity's wrath. On Earth, in a small apartment in Seoul, an old woman named Grandmother Shin sat with her grandson. He had survived the war. He had come home with scars on his body and shadows in his eyes, but he had come home. "Do you regret going?" she asked him one evening as they watched the sunset together. Her grandson thought about the question. He thought about the friends he had lost, the things he had seen, the nightmares that still woke him in the middle of the night. Then he thought about the children he had helped rescue, the slaves he had freed, the evil he had helped destroy. "No," he said finally, "I do not regret it. Someone needed help." We answered. That is what humans do. Grandmother Shin nodded and held her grandson's hand. Outside, the sun continued to set over a peaceful Earth. Somewhere in the galaxy, freed slaves were building new lives. Children who had known only fear were learning to hope, and beings who had once lived under the shadow of tyranny were looking up at the stars without terror, because they knew that if anyone ever threatened them again, humanity would answer, the cry for aid would always be heard, and humanity's wrath would always follow.